In this video, I want to show you what you have to do before every single shot you're playing in pool, no matter what kind of shot it is. And if you're following that approach, not only will you become way more consistent in matches, but you will also save countless of hours at the practice table. So great video to come. So first of all, what do we want to do here? We're playing 9-ball, we want to run the balls in order from 1 to 9. And I know way too many advanced players who would step to the table, they're coming out of their chair or they just broke. They're seeing the layout, they're seeing the 1-ball, and they're just trying, because they know the cue ball comes naturally into this area, they just go down on the shot, playing it. They got a position on the 2-ball, they didn't really think about anything, and all of a sudden, they're ending up with that angle on the 2-ball, which is horrible, because now they start to think, oh, wait a second, I have to get from the 2 to the 3, and then from the 3-ball to the 4-ball. And with that angle, looks like I played a good shot from the 1 to the 2, but all of a sudden, I can't do really anything at all, apart from bringing it to short side position, and I ended up straight on the 3-ball, and I have to play a super difficult shot to get on the 4-ball, which with low right might be like that. But I mean, this is really, really low percentage and really, really difficult. And I had to work really, really hard already, which I'm not supposed to do, especially in that kind of layout. So the problem already started with the very, very first shot, because the shot I had to play on the 3-ball was just a result of playing a bad shot on the 1-ball. And this is why planning and visualization is so important, because you immediately see here that piece of paper is what I like to use when I'm in training. I'm trying to put that piece of paper to a place on the table where I want to get from the 1 to the 2, because what I immediately see when I'm studying this layout, I know I have to get an angle to get from the 3-ball to the 4-ball. This means I have to get an angle on the 2-ball to come easily over to the 3-ball that I can then come easily to here or to here on the 4-ball. And this starts with the very first shot. So you see why planning is so important. Sometimes you get away, especially in 9-ball. Sometimes it's not that difficult of a layout where you not really need to have the right angle. For example, the 4-ball would be here, would be a completely different story. Then it doesn't really matter where you are, because getting from the 3 to the 4 is super simple, even if you're straight. But the 4-ball is here. So getting back to that kind of shot, the first thing I definitely have to do, no matter if I'm in practice or in a game, I want to pick a point or a line on the table. So the cue ball needs to be on that line that I'm having an angle on the 2-ball. And this is important, because if I'm not visualizing that, especially in training, and I'm playing the shot, and I'm ending up somewhere in that area, I will never really know if I accomplished what I was trying to do, because I'm just playing into a huge area without trying to get onto any specific point. So I won't really learn if I was successful. If I would have visualized before that point here on the table and the cue ball ended up here like on our first shot, I immediately know I was way off of my cue ball control and I learned something. This is why planning and visualization is so important. So how do we get to that point on the 2-ball? Think this would be my ball in hand point. This would be perfect. So I know if I'm playing the 1-ball, if I'm not doing anything, the cue ball will naturally come into this area roughly. This is the first thing you have to think about. So I know, okay, maybe what I can do, instead of playing that with a follow, maybe if I'm playing a draw shot and changing the line to here, then the cue ball comes to that rail, which is not fine. So maybe if I'm drawing the cue ball and I'm adding some right spin, that the cue ball doesn't hit here, but a bit closer here, I have a chance to hit that rail, and then the cue ball will naturally travel along that line, and I will always have that angle no matter where the cue ball stops. So this is important. This is why I want to visualize, because that way I can think about what the cue ball should exactly do and how I want to get position and exactly to what point I want to get. And it doesn't matter if you don't getting to that point, at least you tried, you visualized, you had a clear image in mind, you had a clear expectation that you can compare with the outcome. This is really important. This is how you learn a lot faster. So let's try to play that shot. So the first thing I want to do is, I want to, of course, know where I need to hit the one ball, that it goes into the pocket. Then I want to really think about where the cue ball should go and how the cue ball travels. And then really important, when I'm doing that, I'm not going down, looking around, trying to fine-tune where I need to aim on the cue ball and on the one ball. No, I want to plan everything of that before I'm going down on the shot. Really, really important. So the problem I see with many advanced players is they're trying to control the cue ball too much, because I'm looking at the contact point. I'm trying to know the speed that I'm playing with by doing these kind of pre-strokes, and I know where I need to hit the cue ball. So when I'm going down, it's not about controlling the cue ball anymore or making the shot anymore. It's just about executing the shot how I've visualized, how I felt it. Because I know what kind of point I want to hit. I know what kind of spin I want to put on the cue ball, so a bit of low, a bit of right, and I know the kind of speed I'm about to play. So when I'm down, I'm just trying to replicate what I felt in my mind, and I'm not worrying about where the cue ball exactly goes. I'm not worrying about if I'm actually making the shot. I'm just trying to replicate the image or the thing my body already felt. This is important. This is visualization. You're having the clear image in your mind, in your body. You basically feel the shot, and your mind just trying to replicate this. And you're not worrying about the cue ball or about anything whatsoever. Okay, long story short, let's give it a try. Try to bring the cue ball around and to that point. Okay, now I hit the 4-ball, which is really bad, but this is the great thing about this. Now I've learned something, even though I completely messed the shot up, which is totally fine, because now I immediately know, okay, the image I had in mind or the way to play this shot is not the same as reality, because if I'm playing the shot that way, the cue ball will come towards the 4. But now I know, okay, I need less spin or less low on the cue ball. So let's give it another try. You can see in that way, I was able to change it, and I got really close to that piece of paper because I visualized, because I compared the expectation or the thing I did with reality, and I've adjusted. I learned how to study the rack, how to plan ahead, and how to visualize, and how the cue ball actually reacts, and how to adjust. Very important. You will learn how to adjust. Okay, let's try to complete this rack. Now here, very important, I want to think about what kind of angle I want to have on the 3-ball. And once again, I have to think ahead, because look at the 4 and the 5. So on the 4-ball already, if I'm on that side, I have a difficult shot where I need to bring the cue ball back to here, end up with an angle on the 5-ball. What I could also do is, could try to go to short side position, which makes the execution of the shot might a bit easier. And you can see I'm already, when I'm on the 2-ball, I'm thinking about the 5-ball here. So I would say, if we're facing that angle, I could either bring the cue ball to here, I could also bring the cue ball straight out to here, or I could even come around and bring the cue ball to here. So I would say this is the point I want to have. And of course, I'm not going to always be perfect. Sometimes I'm going to have more angle, less angle. But by choosing this point, I'm at least in an area where if I'm not 100% on the point, I still have options. So now, very important, when I'm on the 2-ball, I'm trying to visualize once again where I need to hit and what kind of spin I need. Because I know if I'm just rolling that ball in, the ball or the cue ball is going to go to here. Or I have the feeling that this is going to happen. So I know, well, I might going to use some right spin on the cue ball and a tiny, tiny bit of low to bring the cue ball more towards that line. This is why visualization is just so important. Okay, let's see. Well, I mean, I didn't get exactly to that point, but you can see how close I am to having that angle. So let's come over, see what I can do. Well, I have all the options. I think it's most natural here to bring the cue ball to short side position, to have an either straight shot on the 4-ball, here is okay, or even almost frozen to the rail would be okay. But this is what I want to think about, right? I'm not just playing once again blindly over to here. Once again, I want to plan ahead. I want to visualize. So looking at that shot, I think the cue ball is going to come to here. And I would say, let's aim for this angle where I'm almost frozen to the rail, where I can just follow in between to here. If I'm straight, it's okay. If I'm here, it's okay. But at least I had a clear plan in mind. So here I know I need some right spin to bring the cue ball to here and back to here. So I'm visualizing the shot, feeling the speed. And the cue ball ended up on point. That's absolutely perfect. And I only was able to bring the cue ball to here because I really visualized the shot, because I really had this clear plan in mind, and because I didn't just blindly play to here. And this is why I ended up perfectly. Now, I just can play a follow shot, but it's going to be important that I think about the 5-ball, because look at the 6-ball. I don't want to end up straight. I think if I'm ending up frozen to the rail, I can naturally come to the 6. Or if I'm ending here, I can naturally come 1 rail or 2 rails towards the 6. Believe it or not, I think I just feel it a bit more to keep the cue ball frozen down here on the 5-ball. I can't take that piece of paper because it's below the cue ball. So let's try to just freeze the cue ball to the rail. That was bad. I mean, we got away with it, but this was bad. So the angle really wasn't there. I needed a bit less follow, that the cue ball comes a bit more to the right. So this was a bad shot, but now at least I know, well, I had a wrong expectation. I wasn't able to do that. At least I know, okay, I hit it maybe a bit too hard. Maybe I cheated the pocket a bit to that side, or maybe I just hit a bit too high on the cue ball. So once again, I've learned something, and I got close enough that I still have an option to continue. This is really important. Okay, let's keep going. Now this is an important one, from the 6 to the 7, because I need to come to here on the 7. Here it doesn't matter if I'm straight or if I'm having a bit of an angle, but I need the right angle to get from the 6 to the 7. So I would say I could either be all the way here and just come 1, 2 rails into the line. The problem, however, here is it's really difficult to bring the cue ball exactly to here. And you have to imagine if the cue ball comes from that line, it travels to here and it just travels a bit too far, then I'm not left with any shot on the 6-ball. This is important. Even though that would be the perfect, easiest ball in hand angle, I might want to do something else where I have a bit more margin, which would probably mean leaving myself that angle where I have to come 1 rail to here. Even though this is not the easiest way to execute the shot, but just because the cue ball is really difficult to bring to here. Okay, so let's try to get that angle. because I don't like to be here. So let's try to bring the cue ball to here, and I think if I'm just going one rail out, do I have a good chance to bring the cue ball to here? Yes, that's possible. Of course, what I could also do is use some inside spin and come to here. And sometimes what I like to do is to see if I'm feeling this kind of shot. And you know what? I'm not feeling the inside spin here. I have a feeling that with the inside spin, I'm going to end up too far here and I'm going to end up straight on the 6 ball because it's just a bit too much angle to bring the cue ball so early to here that comes out like this. I have the feeling it's going to hit here and come out like this, that I'm straight on the 6 ball. And this is exactly what happens when you're visualizing, when you're planning ahead, when you really think about what the cue ball will do. Because of course I could just go down, okay, use some inside spin, hit anywhere here on the rail and anywhere here, and all of a sudden you're once again faced with a tough shot. So this is why visualization is so powerful. Okay, I think I'm just gonna roll that in. So center ball. Came too far. And yes, I ended up straight. I needed a touch of right spin. So that's fine. I mean, I'm still not that far away, but all of a sudden you can see I'm having a way more difficult shot. So I have to draw the cue ball. So of course, yes, even if you're visualizing and even if you're planning ahead, you're not always going to be pinpoint. Of course, you need to work on your skills, on your cue ball control, but this is exactly what I'm doing here. I'm working right now in real time on my cue ball control with you because it's been off lately anyway, so this is a great practice for me as well. Okay, straight in shot. I need to draw the cue ball back. If I'm hitting it full in the face, I'm gonna hit here. I'm gonna come out like this, end up in the best case straight. Maybe I'm not gonna even draw all the way back to the rail because if I'm hitting here, it can easily go away from me. So I would say if I'm just cheating the pocket a bit, drawing the cue ball back approximately to here, I have the best possible option, which doesn't really mean that I'm gonna get exactly to that point, but at least I'm trying. Okay, visualizing, feeling the speed. Mishit the pocket, cheated it to the wrong side, but still got close enough to my point. So I hit the left side of the pocket compared to the right side. In pool, you can always cheat the pocket. I put a pretty good draw stroke on it, but I ended up a bit too close to here. Okay, we're still fine. We're very close to that angle we wanted, just the problem a bit too close to the rail. So now I would say, let's try to get the 8 ball into the side pocket. Just come one rail out. And if the cue ball ends up, I would say on that point would be perfect. Then I can just stun over to here. So once again, I'm trying to see what the cue ball does naturally. If I'm just following that in, I think with just follow, I will come a bit too close to here. So I know I need a tiny, tiny bit of left spin. Okay, visualizing, feeling the speed, trying to think about the contact point and my tip position on the cue ball, and then just trying to execute the shot how I've visualized. And it doesn't matter if it works or not, you will always learn something. Okay, hit that one a tiny bit too soft. You can see here would be ideal. Now I'm like that too short, but I still have options that way. So now I think I'm still gonna try to stun draw the cue ball back to here. So I'm trying to look at the angle. And you know what? I'm trying to actually draw the cue ball into the rail and back out to here. So really, of course, this video is taking forever now. But of course, this is gonna go a lot faster when you're just in practice by your own. Okay, let's try to bring it to here. Not the easiest shot. and perfect. That's perfect. You can see visualizing really, really helps a lot, and then just executing it. And of course, you will always try to also on the money ball control the cue ball, because you're doing that on every single shot, but only if it doesn't hurt your shot making. All right, big lesson, really exhausting, but I hope this helps, and I hope you will use that in future training sessions and in matches. And if you like this video, if you appreciate it, leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more, and leave a comment if you have any questions. Thanks for watching, guys.